Today we're going to discuss the progress for our project Khazan-2 Re-Entry Prospects. The project progress discusses the phase and the outcome planning, the project management plan development, responsibilities, deliverables, and scope of our project, the work breakdown structure, and the resources in addition to the inputs and outputs and cost estimate towards the project. The data gathered on this well has been collected to evaluate the well Khazan-2 and decide whether it is economical to re-enter it or not. Well logs and drilling programs, in addition to some seismic, fracturing, operational reports, and cost analysis data, are available for use to evaluate the formation and the well and decide whether it is feasible to re-enter the well or not. The technical aspect of the project will include a reservoir simulation in addition to the study of well logs to determine the rates of production that the reservoir is capable of delivering. The drilling program will be used to evaluate how healthy the plugged and abandoned hole is and whether it could be used for operations. If not, a plan to drill a sidetrack will be taking place to be able to produce without any troubles. The cost analysis document will be used to evaluate future costs and potential revenues based on past, current, and future market conditions. The project objectives and success criteria include the ability to decide whether or not to re-enter the well. Making this decision will require the application of modern technology to analyze given data. Re-entry criteria will be decided by determining if the well can produce economic rates currently anticipated to be 5 million standard cubic foot per day. If it were feasible to re-enter, we would like to determine completion methods to maximize the production rate to about 30 million cubic foot per day. These preliminary production values are subject to change to reflect current and anticipated market conditions. If it is not feasible to re-enter, justification will be provided so that the project can be considered complete. The decision of re-entering will support the existing production to generate extra revenue to the company, in addition to extra supply of natural gas to the government of the Sultanate of Oman. In addition, a project evaluation and extinguishment will be marked done whether the decision was to re-enter or not, and further projects could be looked at to move forward.
Our project scope will include the organization and analysis and reservoir simulation of the data for the Khazan-2 well located in Oman to discern whether or not it will be economically viable for BAP to re-enter the well and produce it. Group members will divide tasks based off of each group's members' strengths. The data will need to be effectively sorted and analyzed in a manner that will shed light on a couple of key factors. These three factors will include drilling, completions, and the simulated production of the well. As far as drilling goes, we will analyze the drilling data focusing on a few areas. One area will be whether the well logs and MWD equipment indicate that the well was drilled and completed in the proper zone of the reservoir. We will also look and focus on the drilling reports to see if the well went smoothly or if they encountered any unforeseen problems. Some of these issues might be unexpectedly high pore pressure, if they had any issues with differential sticking or drilling fluid losses, or if they had any well control events. The completion data will be scrutinized to understand if there were any complications during the completion. This may include perforations that did not hit the intended area, a particular stage of the frac not taking enough fluid or taking too much fluid when pressurized, or if they screened out during the initial production to see if the proppants used did stay in the artificial fractures.
So, project management approach. First of all, the absolute decision to execute this project should be authorized from the project manager, Dr. Steven Sears. In this project, the focus is both to study the well logs, fracture data, seismic data, drilling reports, operational reports of the plugged and abandoned well Khazan-2 and decide whether this well is feasible to re-enter. Since the well has been fracked, an additional effort will be put to find out the width and the length of the fractures. From there, an original oil in place and a production rate can be estimated using the data from fracking and reservoir simulation program. The idea behind determining the dimensions of the fractures is basically to get an insight of the porosity and permeability resulted. Therefore, using dual porosity in the reservoir simulation would almost reflect the actual conditions of the reservoir we expect to produce from. After evaluating the re-enter of the well, an appropriate approach of entering the well should take place if and only if the reservoir condition reflect a feasible production rate. Workover techniques could be considered to re-enter the well, such as fishing in case the well is plugged and cemented by a tool. In case that failed, a sidetrack or horizontal well is considered. All resources are obtained from British Petroleum Oil Company (BP) to work on this project. Guidance from LSU faculties and professor is in need to avoid misuse or misinterrupt the project's goal. Dr. Wesley Williams will supervise the project progress throughout this semester and next semester. Dr. Stephen Sears will supervise evaluating the logs and determining production rate using simulation and fracking programs. Jonathan Knowles will supervise the methodology.
I'm Jack Cadigan, and I'm responsible for the cost management plan. And currently our project anticipates having no necessary costs, but we understand that there's a possibility to incur costs which will count against the budget for our project. And for this reason, we still need a plan to manage for any potential future expenses. Currently, Dr. Sears will have the authority to approve any incurred expenses for our group's project. He will provide insight, and any suggestions that he has will be taken into account as to any potential costs and their necessity. In the case that there are any necessary expenditures, I will track and manage any costs incurred by the group. These expenses will be carefully reported in a logical format bi-weekly, both to Dr. Sears and all other group members. In terms of accounting for any cost deviations from the budget, we'll use earned value calculations. In addition, cost and schedule performance indexes will be reported monthly. Any variance above 20% will be deemed to be critical, and at that point it will need corrective action from the group. Any corrective actions that the group deems necessary will need to be approved by Dr. Sears to proceed. So in terms of our current progress towards any potential expenses, we're currently working with the IT department, or the IT section of the Department of Engineering, to renew a license through LSU Engineering. They've already set it up to be renewed. It's just a matter of there's been a problem getting the actual license key. The software license is for eSteamPlan 3D, which is a hydraulic fracturing pseudo 3D modeling program. It produces highly detailed and accurate reports for simulation. So for the hydraulic fracturing part of the project, it will be necessary. The reason we aren't claiming that as a cost in our budget is that the college would renew the license anyway. It's just a matter of speeding things up. So as long as that goes through smoothly, we still anticipate no costs for our project.
All information pertaining to the project will be communicated in some way. Hassan will deal with any data findings from the well logs, as well as any information coming from Dr. Sears. Mike will deal with the operational reports for the formations, as well as any information coming from Mr. Knowles. Jack will cover any fracturing data, as well as our budget and costs. And then Ahmed and Tyler will update the group on meeting dates, times, and places, as well as tasks that need to be done, goals that need to be met, whether or not we're on track with the timeline, and any updates that come from our stakeholders. All of this information will be communicated through weekly meetings in person, group text messaging, phone calls, and any emails, as well as weekly agendas and minutes that will be sent out. Hassan will communicate with Dr. Sears, Mike will communicate with Mr. Knowles, and then any new information that is pertaining to the project should be given to Ahmed and Tyler so that they can send out weekly updates through the text or through the email, and at each meeting they'll have agendas and minutes ready with new information as well. Our stakeholders will receive bi-weekly updates from the group through in-person meetings or minutes, or last option email with any updated information. And then all 5 members of the group will receive these following documents weekly: updates about the project through text or email, as well as the agenda and the minutes. Dr. Williams and Dr. Radonovich will receive updates about the project through the project charter presentation, the progress report presentation, our final project plan presentation, as well as our meetings and agendas that are submitted at the end of the semester. And some expectations for our communication: all members of the group are expected to communicate any information about the project to Ahmed and Tyler so that they can further send that information to our stakeholders as well as to one another. And failure to do so could result in the delay of our project, our timeline, and our goals, and could result ultimately in a project failure.